on mission rescue. They come to Alaska to test their limits. Here, Coast Guard helicopter crews fly to the rescue through some of the country's most unforgiving terrain. There is no more difficult place to fly in the Coast Guard. For the men and women of Air Station Sitka, Alaska is the final frontier.
Radio 6004, we're on scene with the Mustang. Flight surgeon, he's evaluating the patient this time. Roger.
They call Alaska the final frontier, where towering peaks surge from frigid glacial waters. The extremes of Alaska draw those willing to fight brutal weather, isolation, and darkness. These elements play out across a geographical scale that's unrivaled in the continental U.S.
I think as pilots, we all carry somewhat of an ego. When you come to Alaska, I think that ego gets compressed quite a bit. You realize that you're not quite as good as you thought you were.
In this untamed terrain, even the Coast Guard's finest pilots have known moments of fear.
I have been scared in the past year that I've been flying up here. You come up here and it's really a humbling experience.
For Alaska pilots, coming back alive means understanding just what they're up against.
It's just a really demanding environment, and if you don't respect the environment, you don't respect the weather, and if you don't have a real good feeling for the capabilities of yourself in the aircraft, you can get in a lot of trouble.
At Coast Guard Air Station Sitka in southeast Alaska, Pilot Lieutenant Sean Tripp prepares for the worst whenever he launches on a mission.
You said it was in Haines?
An elderly man in the small town of Haines, 150 miles away, has suffered a heart attack and needs to get to a hospital immediately.
Guy's stable now, pain-free, but needs to go to Juneau tonight.
Okay then.
The Coast Guard will fly a medevac mission, only if commercial aircraft can't make it through severe weather conditions.
Okay, so
In Sitka, it happens often.
And they both got turned back because of weather?
Sean Tripp will lead this mission.
The unfortunate thing is that we've already had a commercial helicopter from Temsco already tried to go up in there, but the weather was too nasty. They had to turn around. We've got better equipment. We'll go give it a try.
Now get the Ready Helo online. Get the Ready Helo online. Heart attack, Haines. Now get the Ready Helo online.
Sean has been flying missions out of Sitka for 1 year. He knows it will be difficult to reach the victim, an elderly man named Herb Spradlin.
It's like looking in the inside of a golf ball. You know, you really can barely see the water below you. You're radar navigating, using your GPS, constantly backing up your navigation to make sure that you don't, fly into the side of a mountain. Days like that, you're earning your pay.
The mission is underway, and the helicopter blazes to the rescue. In this vast expanse, a Coast Guard medevac can mean the difference between life and death. That's the case for Herb Spradlin, a longtime Alaska resident and grandfather of 4, who desperately waits for help 150 miles away across narrow mountain passes and foggy inland waterways. But to get to him, the crew will endure a rough 90-minute flight. Winds are gusting up to 50 miles an hour, and visibility is going down. As the weather buffets the helicopter, Sean Tripp and his fellow pilot, Lieutenant Mark Visley, fight to stay on course.
The most challenging part of flying is the navigating. Getting from point A to point B. The transit to that small village is very often the most challenging and the most dangerous.
When they finally land in Haines, the 79-year-old man is still alive, but his blood pressure is dangerously high. The mission is far from over. The closest hospital is in Juneau, 60 miles away, and the weather is closing in.
Okay, airport Bill Pilot 00.
Despite the urgency, Sean must slow down to safely fly through the beating rain and thickening fog. As they skim through these narrow passes, clipping a mountain ridge is a grave possibility.
Missions like those, they can really make the hair stand up on the back of your neck because the weather is a key factor.
Sean knows that the best pilots always anticipate the worst.
You got to be thinking ahead of the aircraft. Many times if you get behind the aircraft, we refer to that as holding onto the aircraft by the tail. That's when the aircraft's moving faster than you're mentally prepared to. That's a real bad thing because you want to be at the pointy end of the aircraft.
Just a few feet behind Sean, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer and a paramedic work on Herb.
When you go from 90 up, this is 375. Yeah, it's pretty drastic.
Portable medical gear keeps track of Herb's vitals. The Coast Guard medical team stands ready to act fast at the first sign of another heart attack.
Your number 2 needles is right for the runway. Thanks.
In less than an hour, the helicopter touches down at the Juneau Airport. The Coast Guard crew transfers Herb Spradlin to a Juneau medical team. He'll need triple bypass surgery and weeks of recovery before he's back in Haines with his wife. With the medevac mission accomplished, the weary Coast Guard crew heads back home to Sitka.
What a feeling to come home after a life-saving mission. But when you sit back and think about it, you know, you saved somebody's life. You know, you potentially, brought somebody back to their family. That's the best payment you could ever ask for.
Air Station Sitka's vast area of operations keeps the pace here at a constant high. A 350-mile strip of southeastern Alaska coastline is just part of their area of responsibility. That covers 169,000 square miles of inland waterways, fjords, and mountain passes. That's a territory the size of the state of California. Flying through here, pilots battle high altitude, blinding snow, and impenetrable darkness. The conditions are so challenging that Coast Guard pilots like Sean Tripp typically complete a full tour of duty elsewhere before they can fly in Sitka. Once they arrive, new pilots still have to show they've got the right stuff to fly here. Only after flying through a Sitka winter is a pilot considered Alaska qualified and allowed to command an aircraft.
Yeah, I came up here kind of shaking in my boots a little bit. You really have to be on your toes to fly up here. The weather changes at the drop of a hat. It's frightening.
Lieutenant Chris Ferguson is 8 long months away from his Alaska qualification. After a first tour in Florida, Alaska has been a rude awakening.
You could be at 500 feet, and the only thing in Florida you'd have to look out for would be a radio tower. Whereas you can be at 5,000 feet and you can still run into a mountain up here.
It's almost 5 p.m. on a blustery August day, and Chris is on duty for the night.
Looking at the weather outside right now, it's not looking really nice. So a lot of times when the weather gets bad, people tend to have a tendency to get in trouble. So we'll see. We may have a case, we may not.
Chris's wife Heather joins him for dinner in the air station cafeteria. In the last 6 months, the Fergusons have married and moved from sunshine and beaches to mountains and cold.
It's a total change. I never would have imagined in a million years that I would be living in Alaska. Yeah, it's kind of nice to be away from everything, to start with something totally new, and it's a great experience. And it'll definitely bring us closer together, just having the two of us here for a while.
At the start of a new shift, Chris nervously checks the weather. Little does he know that 90 miles north, In a remote spot of Glacier Bay National Park, a kayaking excursion has just gone terribly wrong. Alaska Wilderness Guide John Coors had carefully planned the week-long kayaking trip with two of his best friends from college.
We paddled the first day, a little ways, got to near the entrance, and the second day, paddled up into the bay a ways.
The turbulent weather forced them to shore, where they embarked on a hike. They followed a stream for a mile. With no warning, a severe gust of wind sent a tree crashing down on John's shoulder, catapulting him to the stream below.
And the next thing I knew, I was in the water. I tried to reach out, and my left arm was paralyzed, my legs were paralyzed, and I was just sitting there, and I just totally registered that this is real bad. I had to get out. I definitely had a back injury. When I went in the water, I could feel the bolt lightning, and I was just thinking, oh my God, how the heck are we going to get back?
John's friend ran back to camp, where he made a desperate call for help from a VHF radio. But from where they were, on a tiny island in a remote bay, the radio had a range of less than 3 miles. Who would ever hear their cry for help?
Station 292, ops normal position is as
Someone did. Astonishingly, it was a Coast Guard cutter that happened into this protected bay to escape the heavy sea conditions. Just over 2 hours after calling for help, John Coors is transferred on board the Coast Guard cutter.
The chances of the Coast Guard being right there are next to none. Lo and behold, they brought out the whole arsenal.
The cutter crew calls into Air Station Sitka.
What type of injuries are we looking at?
Probable broken ribs, a definite broken arm from what I hear, and whatever else would happen to you if a tree fell on you. That's all we got.
Okay.
Yeah,
John's injuries are life-threatening, and he needs to be medevaced right away. Chris Ferguson has never flown in these extreme conditions.
He's breathing, but he's in a lot of pain. So I'm thinking that you guys are our only option.
Okay. Yeah. At this point, are you requesting a launch on this at this point?
Yes.
Okay. You got to give us a few minutes here to do some planning here. But looking at the weather and put the position down, take a good look at it, do some briefing here, and figure out what we can do.
Commander Carl Baldassari is the operations officer at Air Station Sitka. He oversees the planning and execution of every mission. It's a heavy responsibility.
It's kind of funny. You got a bullet right there.
When the weather goes bad, like today, the lives of Chris Ferguson and the rest of the crew are at stake.
So it's not going to be pretty going in there. It's going to be low visibility.
Weather, 30 knots winds, 300 ceiling, heavy rain, and 1 mile vis.
And that's probably one of the lousiest places we fly in and out of. This Indian Pass right here is the worst place we could possibly go.
Coast Guard flight surgeon Commander Russell Bowman has been in contact with the cutter crew on scene. The doctor feels that John Coors' condition is critical and requires immediate action.
My concern is that he's dropped a lung. I asked if he could talk in how long sentences, and he's not able to speak like one-word sentences, so his respiratory system is compromised. So he's not in shock yet, but it sounds like he's got a pretty significant chest injury.
Ready helo online, get the ready helo online. Medevac, possible broken ribs, broken arm. Now get the ready helo online.
Despite the known risks, Carl Baldassari decides to send his crew out.
It's scary sometimes. I think about, him flying and, being, bad weather, especially in Alaska. But, I pray, so hopefully everything will be okay.
Okay, Doc's got the plan, so if he comes in here, we'll let him know. Yeah.
You take a look at the weather outside, or there may be circumstances that make you not want to go out on a search and rescue case. But when you take it and you put it in perspective as what if that was my father or my mother or brother, out there, or my wife or child, it kind of sobers you up a little bit.
Chris and Lieutenant Commander Rich McIntyre turn the helicopter north toward Glacier Bay. This is extreme weather to be flying in, even by Alaska standards.
This is the kind of weather that bad things happen. All in all, I think we've hedged our bets up front. We've mitigated the risk as much as we can with our equipment, our people, and our training. At this point, the things that would worry me are the things that just get entirely out of hand, where the weather gets so extreme, where even the best equipment and the best trained folks will be challenged.
Yeah, we're bucking the headwind, so yeah. Gonna take us a while here. I think visibility's gone down. Swells, pretty good swells down there. Yeah.
The distance to Glacier Bay National Park is 90 miles from Sitka, but high mountain peaks block a straight route. To weave around these dangerous obstacles, the pilots rely on pre-designated flight paths.
We've taken a map of our area of operation and we've overlaid a series of low visibility routes. Those routes are based on GPS positions. So what we've done is we basically put down all the GPS positions that we can connect to produce routes that will keep us clear of terrain and allow us to navigate safely in the inland environment.
Chris and Rich fight 40-mile-an-hour winds as they slowly make their way north toward John Coors. In these storm conditions, the slightest error could mean disaster. Finally, they spot the Coast Guard cutter Mustang down below. On board is the injured kayaker. It's been close to 5 hours since his accident. For John Coors, time is running out. On the Coast Guard cutter Mustang, a man's life hangs in the balance as he awaits a medevac. Injured kayaker John Coors has shown signs of going into shock. Air Station Flight Surgeon Doc Bowman knows he has no time to lose.
Talking with them, getting reports of vital signs, and the guy was deteriorating some. It was decided that I be hoisted down to the ship to stabilize him, start IV fluids, pain medication, get him packaged and ready for hoisting.
Okay, vessels at our 2 o'clock position, about 50 feet. You can begin the hoist. Under. Doc's going out the door. Okay. Doc's out the door and going down. Doc's just below the aircraft. Okay.
But I never worry about coming home. I can't, I have to trust the crew implicitly because I've got other things to worry about.
Doc's on deck, staying on flag. And hoisted is clear, you're clear to move left. Okay, cease commands. You're all clear.
The pilots notice the Mustang drifting toward a violent rain squall just ahead. It's imperative that the cutter stay out of it to ensure a safe hoist, so Chris issues a warning to the boat below.
And Mustang, rescue 04. Rescue 004, cutter Mustang. Mustang 04, we got the dock on board there. Looks like it's going well. Looks like you're heading for a rain squall. I don't know if you guys, it's possible if you guys come dead in the water, 2 circles or something, but if possible, we'd like to avoid doing the actual hoist in the rain squall. The weather in our current position isn't too bad, so if you guys can maintain it, we'd appreciate it if you could stick around. Rescue 6004, that's a copy. Thanks. Okay, you can con me in. Roger that. Forward to right 50. Forward to right 30. Forward to right 20. Forward to right 10. Forward to right 5. Easy forward to right.
When we got to the ship, the crew had him packaged really well, keeping him warm. They did everything they could.
Staying up trail line.
They have basic EMT level care on board there, so I started an IV on him, assessed him, got some vital signs, and gave him some pain medication before we hoisted him.
Hoist link's going down. Trail line's being tended.
With extreme care, the crew hooks up the trail line.
Hoist link's halfway down. Trail line's being tended. Hoist link's approaching the deck. Hoist link's on deck. Better connecting the hoist hook. Fitted litter. Prepare to take the load. Taking the load.
One false move could mean instant tragedy for John Coors.
Litter's clear of vessel.
I thought the minute they were going to raise me, I was just going to start spinning like that and hit my head or something on the way up, and it just sailed right up.
Litter's coming straight up, roger. Litter's halfway up. Litter's just below the aircraft. Airlines to be intended.
The crew's training and teamwork flawlessly come together in this one moment.
Litter's approaching the door.
To the top, and I could hear all the Coast Guard guys cheering below, and they were great.
Pulling the litter into the cabin.
Doc Bowman is quickly hoisted back up, and the helicopter races back to Sitka.
The victim has a pretty severe shoulder injury, rib injury, wrist injury, numerous left side body injuries, and spinal and neck injuries. Over.
Chris, could you fly for a little bit?